Hey everyone, it's Desiree, and I am here with Spellbinders, showcasing their September 2019 card kit of the month. For this one, we'll be making 7 cards out of just using all of the contents that come in the kit. And as always, you get a lot. It's the best way to say it. So as always, this is the box that it comes in, and this month's theme is Express Yourself. So let's go through what comes in the kit. As always, you get your inspiration card, and also this card tells you what comes in your kit. For the cardstock, now there are some cardstocks that are a little bit different. Not all of them have a texture, although I did like the texture. But we have some beautiful colors: a dark blue, a mirror gold, a green, a beautiful copper brown, a white, pink, maroon, a light gray, and a darker gray. So the cardstocks have changed just a little bit. You still get your 10 card bases and envelopes, and they are already pre-scored and folded. These are standard A2 size card bases. That's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and these are side folding card bases. Get your double-sided tape, which I love. You also get your double-sided foam squares, which basically this whole piece can be used because I like to cut it up. Get some great looking enamel dots. So they come in some really bright colors, but they also have a gold fleck to them, which is really pretty. You get these chipboard pieces that are also stickers, so you get 2 sheets of those within your kit as well. As always, the awesome die cut pack. If you see my previous videos, you know that I'm absolutely in love with this die cut pack. I have way too much fun with it. Once I can get it open, that is. These are just some of the images. You got some beautiful florals. You have some banners. You have some sentiments, large and small. You've got a bicycle, but there's many different choices within this pack to create more than the 10 card bases that you get. Also get another paper pad. Now again, this is a paper pad. This is not a heavy cardstock, but it is great for your backgrounds and for layering. These are all the different papers that are included within this paper pad, and you do get 2 of each within this pad. I'm loving that first one. The stamp set that comes with this month's kit is to die for. If you are looking for sentiments with the different fonts, there it is, and you can build your own sentiments. As always, here's the die set shown separately. This is very interesting. You get to create one of those signs, where you can change the letters. That's what that does. So let's head right in. Let's go with card number 1. Very simple. Extremely simple. I took 2 pieces of the cardstock. One was cut 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. The other one was cut 4 by 5 1/4. That gave me time because my glue bottle clogged. And they will be layered. I am grabbing both of the hello sentiments, and I am going to layer them and glue them together. This way I have a little bit of a dimension with my sentiment. For every die cut you get, there is 2 of each. So I chose just to layer these 2 up. The liquid glue that I am using for this is my Art Glitter Glue. But for the most part, I do use the double-sided foam squares and also the double-sided tape that does come with the kit. There was just no way I was going to get that tape set enough. Nope. So once that's set, I'm going to start layering my pieces on top of each other, and then I will place them onto my card base. I just wanted a slight border going around this beautiful watercolor floral pattern. What I love about the paper too, and all of the contents that come in this kit, they all go together. So if you look closely at that paper, you're going to see the die cuts that resemble that very closely. So I think that's kind of cool. I'm going to add my double side tape to the back of this panel, and then I will place it onto my standard A2 size card base. And I have a slight border that goes around that. Very simple and quick to do. So for card number 2, you knew the vintage photo was going to come into this somehow. I've taken another piece of the pattern paper, again cutting it down to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. By cutting it down to that, excuse me, I get a very thin border going around each of my panels that I'm putting onto my card bases. I think it helps lets them stick out. Just saying. This piece of paper, or pattern paper that I used, it just reminded me of water. So we've got these magnolias going on here, or at least I'm going to say magnolias, or they can be lilies, you know, whatever we want to call them. I am going to ink around the edges of those, and then we're going to play with our placements, start getting them set down. One of these, the one in the center, will be propped up using the double-sided foam squares. And then we will also be placing the leaves around, and I am going to use all of them. And for those, I'm going to use my liquid adhesive to set up. I'm not going to be propping those up. I'm just going to put glue down onto the corner of the leaf. This way, the edge of the leaf can lift up off of the paper, just to give it a little bit more texture and dimension to the card. Once I have those set, I'm going to prop up the camera. I'm going to use the double-sided foam squares. See how great? You can just cut that. And then I'm going to place the butterfly in behind the camera. Once that's all set, I did think, I guess I should add a sentiment. Yes, and I really wanted to use the stamp set. So we gave this a shot. It worked this one time. So I'm actually going to stamp my sentiment, but have it come down onto the pink panel that I have. I will use my Misty for this. I just had a feeling I was going to have to stamp it a couple times, and to just put a little bit more pressure than normal. Hence the reason why the stamp positioner came out. Yeah. So once I know that is set, sorry, I do pull it down a little closer to me. I'm almost out of frame there, but I didn't want to put my head in front of the camera. So I'll just move it out of the way. Once I have that position, I'm going to use my anti-static powder tool. I'm going to use my VersaFine ink. And here's where that pressure comes in, especially where I have the 2 layers of the cardstock over the pattern paper. I just wanted to make sure that I did have a continuous line. I'm hoping, usually I use my white pigment ink when I use my white embossing powder. For this video, I couldn't find it. It was somewhere. So I'm going to carefully put the embossing powder up over the sentiment, trying not to get it all over the place. I will pull in a dry brush just to clean up some of the areas where it's kind of hanging out there, but just to make sure that I don't have those white flecks going throughout the panel. Now that I have that ready, I'm going to grab my heat tool and I will heat set that until it is melted across the card. Trying not to keep the heat on there too much either because of all the layers, and I don't want my card base to warp. So I got lucky on this one. So for our third card, again, there's the vintage photo. I'm going to ink around the two panels that I'm going to set down onto my card base. And I fell in love with the windows. There was two different types of windows within the die cut. Yes, I used both of them. I'm just saying. So once I get this panel down, I'll be then grabbing the other piece of pattern paper and securing that in the center of that panel. Again, the first one's cut 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and this one, honestly, I forget what this one was cut. I think maybe 3.5 by 4, I believe is what that one was cut by. Actually thinking ahead, I'm grabbing my sentiment now so that we don't have to do what we did in the previous card. I'm going to grab the sympathy because it fits perfectly across that area that I have for my panel. And then we're just going to build our sentiment up on top of that. That's the beauty of this stamp set. Is you can create your own sentiments with this. So you have the beautiful script font, and then you have the straight, you know, the block letters that can go with it. So I chose with deepest, and then sympathy is in the yes, I almost wiped my ink pad with my chamois. Yes, did you see that? I'm just wanted to point that out there. Yep, I'm awesome. So, I used my Gina K ink to stamp my sentiment. I did want that in black. I'm going to ink around the window, making sure that I go into the insides as well, just to have that shading and depth on the window. I'm going to use the double-sided foam squares, and I'm just going to cut them up. I'm going to use these thin strips and these little buttons that I'm cutting off the side to prop my window up. So again, you can cut that entire block up and it can be used every which way, and you can get thin strips from it. So that's what I wanted to show on that. I grabbed the die cut with the moon, and I have that coming in from the window. And then I'm just going to add one of these small little tiny tags, and it simply says love. And I'm going to put that down on the bottom right hand corner of the windowsill. And that is our third card. So for our fourth, again, we're using some vintage photo because we can't be too far away from that. Just saying. I grabbed a lot of the florals for this card. So you can see I have the wonderful paper with the old-fashioned light bulbs. I'm going to set that down. First, I'm going to put my panel down. Again, that's cut 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And then for the smaller panel, that is actually cut 2 inches by 4.5 inches. The one with the light bulbs. So I'm going to set that one down first, and then I'm going to get in position my smaller panel. Once that's set, I have a piece of the white cardstock cut down, and this is just, I'm using this just as a platform, so that when I start placing my other pieces around, they actually have something that they're going to come up off of. Every piece will have vintage photo going around it. I'm going to set the clock up in the upper left-hand corner. And then I'm going to play with the placement of the flowers. The center flower will be propped up with double-sided foam squares. Again, just to add even more dimension than what we already have. Whenever I do, if I'm adding florals and if they are die cuts, I will, any of those that are propped up using dimensional foam squares, I do only put them towards the center. This way I'm able to push the greenery down below so that it'll have a place to stick. I'm going to fill in with the smaller watercolor flowers, and you can see they're the flowers that are very close to the first card pattern paper that we used. I'm going to use this circle as one of my sentiments that I put on, and it says celebrate whenever you can. I'm also going to add the small book, and it says the story so far. And then there's just one more sentiment that I'm going to add towards the bottom coming off the book, and that's a strip that says good things. So I do like the way all of the sentiments in the kit, they kind of tie together as you're layering all your cards together. So card number 5, believe it or not, let's look at making a masculine card. So one of the pattern papers in the pad had this pattern paper with the dogs. And they also had die cuts for the dogs, which I thought was cool and awesome. So again, panel was cut 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and then I have another panel cut, and it's from the solid cardstock, and it's 3 inches by 4 inches, and this color, it's like a golden brown, almost like a bronze, but not metallic. I really like that. I loved the car. That was part of the die cuts. It's one of my favorite. And of course I had to put the bug in. I did grab the 2 die cuts as well of the dogs, and we're going to set those in place as well. So each of the dogs, one's going to go in the upper left hand corner and the other one's going to go in the lower right hand corner. We're just going to glue them down directly. And we're going to set the beetle in place too. You won't see him too much, but yeah, he had to be in back of the car. We're going to go around the Camaro, and we will use the double-sided foam squares to prop that up. The sentiments that I chose for the front of this card says no other dad like you, and then underneath the car it says the real deal. And then I actually remember that I have those gorgeous gems to add to the front of the card. And I did choose the darker blue ones, and it's amazing. While they have the gold fleck on the top, if you let the light hit them, they are like solid glitter. It's like a prism. Yes, I'm moving the card right now so that I can see this and be amazed. They're really pretty. And even in the light, they look gray. Okay, I'm done. So I do actually also choose a sentiment for the inside. It's one of the circle ones from the die cuts, and it says, I love you every day. So I just thought that was fitting. So we can make masculine cards from this. So for our second to last card, still playing with the die cuts because there is just so much, Have my first panel. I'm going to set that down onto my standard A2 size card base. And then I have a gray panel cut. That one was cut to be 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. I am going to take care of the sentiment first again. You know, we learn from our mistakes. Yes, we do. And I'm going to set that in place. And the sentiment I chose is thinking of you. I will use my Versamark ink, and I will use my white embossing powder. Once that is heat set, we will then start to use all of these wonderful layers that we've chosen. Excuse me. So as I said, the cardstock, excuse me, the cardstock is different. Usually it has a really cool texture to it. For this month, they did not. Which is, which is okay. But, you get used to things, So once that's set, now I'm going to grab, this is the other window frame. And if it's not a window frame, I made it one. I was going to actually double layer it with the one that was back there. And I chose against that. I wanted that to actually go straight down onto my card design. I'm then going to fill in with some of the flowers. Now these flowers are going to move, but I do like where they're falling as I'm inking them. And my fingers are just getting inked up as well. So the flowers are actually going to go down around the bottom. So all of these pieces that I've inked up, I don't end up using them all, which is fine. Because I sometimes tend to get carried away there. But I did love the 3 teacups, and I just love the watercolor flowers and the florals that were in this. I'm going to use that tape measure to go across just in behind the teacups, and that's actually going on straight. I will prop this flower up using the double-sided foam squares just to give it some more dimension. And then I'm going to fill in with these smaller purple flowers just to fill in any open areas that I have. I'm going to use the gold leaf to come off the one side, and then the rest of the leaves I'm going to use the die cuts themselves, but I am going to cut them down. I'm not going to use the whole sprig at once. I'm just going to fill in with those few that I used. I'll trim off my edges on anything that's hanging off. And then I'm going to come in with a white gel pen, and I'm just going to add some lines and dots to make it look like it's a window, like there's glass there. Probably what you could do is use a piece of vellum from your stash, and then it would look like a window. I'm going to pull in these gems again, and I'm going to pull in the different colors and use the different sizes. I also wanted to use one of those chipboard pieces. So on that one, I chose the one that says, "You are one of a kind." And I thought that went well with thinking of you. So now we're going to play with the dies. Oy. So first, the easy part. I'm going to set my panel down onto my card base. Now you can see I have the pink already cut, and I used some washi tape to keep all of those together. I wanted them all to be one panel. But I am going to set that panel directly down onto my card base. And I am going to use just a little bit extra on the double-sided tape because I just want to make sure that it sticks. Here's a tip. When you use washi tape, make sure your double-sided tape is touching the cardstock somewhere. Because double-sided tape will not stick to washi tape. It's very interesting. I then cut the frame panels out, and I'm using a very thin strip of double-sided foam tape so that I can create my frame that goes around this. Now you can see the frame is not exactly touching each other in the corner, so I'm going to add some glue to the top of those, and then the die also includes these little tiny gold bars. Sorry, I seem to be losing my voice. And that just adds a little bit of an accent to the frame that you have going on here. There's not enough tea right now. So sorry. So I die cut some of the flowers, and I used 2 different cardstocks for that. And I added a dot of glue, and I'm going to straddle the second flower on top of the other. And then I'm going to set those down on the bottom. I will be using my glue dots for that. I think I get a better adhesion, and they're easier to use. Let's be honest. Yes. So I'm just going to set those in place. And making sure that they do overlap. And as always, sets of 3. And then I'm going to come in and use my liquid adhesive just to set the greens. And I'm okay that it's coming up over the frame. Again, to me that just adds some dimension to the piece. Now that we have all that done, now we're going to build our phrase on our panel. So I'm just using a scrap piece of paper so that I can dip my letters into the glue instead of trying to work the glue bottle, because these are really tiny letters. You do get every one of the alphabet and some symbols. So, of course, always be creative. And it fit. And it looks pretty centered the way that I wanted it. Let me put it to you that way, because I know always isn't and creative's not. But I did want the always to the left and the creative more to the right. So I do hope you enjoy the 7 cards that I made using the Spellbinders Card Kit of the Month for September 2019. Remember, down in the video description will be all the links that you need to the Spellbinders blog, their inspirational galleries, of course, to get your kit if you're not a subscriber yet, and then also other links to all of the other wonderful kits that they have as well. I will also link to some of the products that I used outside of the kit in case you need or would like more information on them. Any questions that you have, please leave those down below as well, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you so much for stopping by and just spending this little bit of time with me today watching the video. If you haven't already, I'd love for you to subscribe. Make sure you ring the bell so that you don't miss the next. I hope everyone is having a great day, but always remember what's most important to me. Always be creative.